On this premiere edition of the Covers Council, brought to you by Covers.com, we're going to discuss the new legalized gambling law and how it affects the average gambler compared to the novice. We'll also dive deep into Major League Baseball wagering and overall team analysis, go over early college football, NFL team options, and much more as the Covers Council on the Prime Sports Radio Network starts now. All right, it's Wednesday, June 13th, 2018. I'm Greg DePalma. You're listening to the premiere edition of the Covers Council as we bring you the top sports handicappers in the industry for a discussion on a wide variety of sports topics, including gaming news, the latest wagers, and more. Make sure to visit our Covers Council group at experts.covers.com. And you could take 50% off any purchase. Use the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. So coming up in just a few minutes, we'll be introing in one of our other pro sports handicappers. But to start with, we've had him on this program, on this network once before. He is publisher of the Playbook Football Preview Guide magazine that is available right now for 2018, and also the publisher of the Playbook.com website, Mark Lawrence. Mark, good to talk to you again.
Hey, my pleasure as always, Greg. Good to be on board with you at prime time for the Covers group here, and looking forward, to say the least, to the 2018 football season ahead.
Yeah, football season. Now that the basketball season's over and the hockey season's over, this is the time of year where, you know, I kind of feel sorry for the sports fans that don't get into baseball. Because, I mean, if you don't get into baseball, then, and even if you're kind of like, all right, I like golf a little bit, or tennis, or NASCAR, or golf, still, that doesn't happen every day. So if you're not into baseball, the summertime as a sports fan can be pretty dead. But if you are into baseball, then really this is it. This is what you get to look forward to, the meat of the summer for baseball fans, until you got a whole bunch of other distractions coming up starting next month with training camp.
Well, I happen to be a baseball fan, so I enjoy baseball as it is. I know it's a little bit maybe not as fast-paced of a sport that we're used to when football and basketball are playing, but it's nice to take a break when baseball's here, and it also gives an opportunity, a chance to get ready for the football season.
Yeah, we're going to talk baseball in a little bit. We're going to go over a few topics there, and we're also going to get into NFL, college football, and then, of course, definitely start the program off by talking about the new gambling law. But before we do that, again, what I want to do is, though, ask you about the Playbook Football Preview Guide that's out right now. So how long have you been working on it? What edition is this?
This is our 26th year of publishing the Playbook Football Preview Guide magazine. 26 years, yeah, it's been a long time. Very popular magazine, especially in Las Vegas. It's the number one selling football betting guidebook in Las Vegas.
Awesome.
It just hit all the newsstands in Las Vegas as we're speaking right now, and anybody listening to the show from Vegas can pick up copies at the Gamblers Book Club in town in Las Vegas as well.
All right, sounds good. Again, that's the 2018 edition of the Playbook Football Preview Guide. All right, let's welcome in our second handicapper here on the premiere show, Teddy Covers, who has been with us on a few other shows. We've done some NBA shows. Now the NBA season's finally over, Teddy, so it's on to baseball and more.
Yeah, I mean, look, summertime isn't like football season or basketball season. There's a different pace to the summer, and that's normal and natural. It's, you have this yearly cycle that we all go through. Mark just finished putting together the playbook. I'm sure he's ready to sleep for a week and a half, which, by the way, I went down to the Gamblers Book Club yesterday, and I saw them for sale, and I happened to pick one up. Another fine publication.
Hey, see, you already have a customer, Mark. And I was telling Mark that it was strange for me to see his area code, being that he's a South Florida guy, because I mean all you other Covers guys are in Vegas.
Not necessarily. I mean, there's guys from all over the country. I mean, the center of the sports betting world in the U.S. is in Vegas, but that certainly doesn't mean that there aren't very, very qualified handicappers from all over the country who've been doing it for many years.
Of course. All right, let's get started. Let's talk about the new legalized gambling law, fellas. So I know, Mark, you and I first spoke. We had a conversation for the first time before we even did a show a few months ago. And we talked about this topic, and you were very confident that this day was going to come real soon, and you even meant this year, and here it is. So when you first heard about it, and it was public, what was your first? What was the first thing that popped into your head?
Well, it was like I imagined I was back in the 1930s and Prohibition was over, and finally it's over, and we have legalized sports wagering. It's something that anybody that's been in this industry for the longest time has really been wishing and praying for, and thankfully the Supreme Court came to a good decision that's going to end up being favorable to sports wagering fans across the country, and so I'm really thoroughly just glad, enamored that it's here, but I do have some concerns as we move forward.
Before we get to those concerns,
first impressions, Teddy?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's all about the concerns. I mean, sure. We've kind of ended prohibition in a few states, and a few more are going to follow. But when you're talking about a state-by-state patchwork versus an actual federal plan to deal with it, it's at a very tenuous spot right now. In my mind, the negotiations are very, very dicey, and the revenue projections we're seeing from state after state are just ludicrous. The New Jersey's numbers are saying, "Oh yeah, we're gonna dwarf Nevada's handle in 5 years." Good luck with that, New Jersey. But that's the nature of the political game. You have to speak hyperbole for something to get through a state legislature. But the bottom line is, I'm glad to see prohibition repealed. I'm not convinced that it actually does anything.
Okay. And by the way, feel free to interact with each other without waiting for me. This is your show. You guys are the experts, so you can even host a show by yourself, pretty much. But let's talk about the concerns, Mark. First, you. What are your major concerns?
Well, first of all, I have to reiterate what Teddy said. My feelings are his exactly, and I think what really needs to happen here for this to work is that everybody has to be on the same playing field. I'm talking the leagues, the sports books. Everybody has to be on the right page, or else the panacea that everybody's envisioning is not going to happen. Teddy hit it on the head with states having individual state laws. That's a patchwork government, and it's not going to work. We're going to have the federal government mandate federal law and get behind this sports wagering bill so that everybody's on the same page. Everybody has the same rules to play by. Because if you don't, the states are going to end up competing with one another, and that's not going to be good for the industry itself. It's not going to be good for the game itself. And my other main concern here is for NCAA sports, college sports. And because of the fact that it's college athletes who are not earning paychecks as opposed to professional athletes who haul down ludicrous paychecks.
Yep.
All you need to do is to look at what happened in Europe. When Europe legalized wagering, two things happened there, and it became successful for two reasons. Number one is because it was legalized, and number two, it became successful because the athletes were paid enough money to become unapproachable when it came to fixing games. And if that is not the case here with NCAA sports, we're going to have a problem here. So that's my main concern is, what are they going to do with the college athletes? Are they going to have to end up starting to pay them from these revenues that they're receiving here? But I think it could all end up happening if, as Teddy said, we're mandated by federal law as opposed to state laws.
Okay. Before we dive into those concerns, Teddy, any other concerns that Mark didn't bring up?
Dozens. I mean, literally dozens. Okay. You have state legislators who don't know anything about betting who are now passing laws on betting.
Okay.
You have gambling commissions who don't have any experience in setting rules and regulations, now trying to set rules and regulations. You have the leagues telling the states and lobbying the states the Nevada model is wrong. The Nevada model, which has worked, not only in terms of uncovering scandal, but in terms of keeping betting safe and above board for the last 50 years. They're saying, no, that model's no good. It's the European model that we want to follow because that's the model where we can get revenue, direct revenue from the leagues themselves. So basically the leagues are looking for a cut. And there's no room to give anybody an extra cut. There's not a ton of profit when you look at the sportsbook side of it or when you look at the bettor side of it. Everyone's trying to grind out small margins off of high volumes, and when you're looking at small margins and try to say, all right, yeah, let's give 1% here and 0.5% there, it just doesn't work. So the other issue, think about it. Everyone that's betting in New Jersey today, right? The sports betting becomes legal in New Jersey, in the next 24 hours. Everyone that's betting illegally in New Jersey today, they have a bookie, they have an offshore, and they're betting on credit. Everyone that wants to bet legally in New Jersey tomorrow now has to drive to the sports book, get cash to make the wager, drive back to the sports book. They don't have phone betting yet, or app betting yet. It's just not going to happen. People aren't going to do that. They're going to continue to make bets with their bookies on credit.
I agree.
And all the revenue projections are, not just out of line, they're insanely high. And once the revenue doesn't start coming in the way that the states are projecting it to come in, well, then everyone starts looking for an even bigger cut. So I've got concerns everywhere. Okay. I really do.
Mark, a big part, Greg, let me add to what Teddy's saying here. A big part of the ugly mess is the leagues with their hands out here asking for an integrity fee. And it's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. And what they're asking for isn't going to happen. The sportsbooks aren't going to cough up profits that they're not making already. Based on evaluations that they feel are going to happen. If anything does happen between the leagues and the sports books, it's going to be a cut on net profits, not on handle, more realistically that way. And the cry for integrity is it's just another way of saying we want to tax the league. We want to put our finger in the pie and take home a piece of the pie. My other concern here is that while all this happens, legalized sports wagering is here. What's going to happen to the novice, to the person that is not in the loop, doesn't understand what happens when it comes to sports wagering, isn't informed? Are they going to become addicted to the sport? Are they going to are they turning degenerates? I think that the leagues need to get behind responsible sports wagering here as well. Teach the people how to do things properly. Don't become alcoholics just because prohibition has been lifted here.
Sure.
So that's another path I think the league needs to look down.
All right. Well, what would be a suggestion then, say, Teddy, for how the leagues can all get together, be on the same page, and make this work properly for everybody?
That's fantasy land. I can sit here and say, the league should do this. This is what should happen. And, what should happen?
You're a little muzzled right now, Teddy.
I'm sorry. Is this any better?
No, you're still a little muzzled. It's sort of like we're doing this.
I apologize. I don't think there's anything on my mic, and I haven't changed anything.
I don't know what it is.
So should I call back in, or should I keep going?
Yeah, go ahead and call right back. Maybe that's what it is. We'll get Teddy to call right back. Strange how that happens, but anyway, it is what it is. Go ahead, Mark. You tell me.
Well, just following up a little bit about what I just said about the uninformed player becoming suddenly immersed in deep waters that he's not familiar with, and the need for education here. Teddy and I are both working on a new project called Sports Data University.
Okay.
Where we're going to be presenting live classes, teaching people how to do the right things, how to make the right wagers, what the things to do and not do. So, education and information are key to success in anything that you do, especially in sports wagering. Information is vital, so something like this, a program like this, I think will be really beneficial for people that are newer novices to the game at Sports Data University, and we're looking to get the leagues behind us and their support in this plan as well.
So you're working on that too, Teddy?
Yeah, look, Mark puts together great projects. And when Mark comes to me saying, yeah, sure, I'm interested. And we're talking about a guy that's talking with the leagues in an effort to get them up to speed on what's really going on. Because, again, when you talk about the learning curve for most bettors, it's fairly steep. When you start out learning about the nuances and the terminology and what's the difference between handle and hold, people don't know that. Legislators don't know that. Players don't know that. So there's a fairly steep learning curve for the first year or two. Not all that different from when poker got legalized around the country. And what happened when poker got legalized in various states around the country is the first year or two, a whole bunch of guys come in and lose all their money, and then they stop playing. I would expect that to happen around in various states with sports betting as well. A good handful of people coming in, getting their butts kicked, and then saying, all right, well, let's find another hobby.
Mark, is there? I mean, do the leagues have to at some point get together and have like their own little summit? You know, where all the commissioners get together and they try to figure out the best way of doing this. And then, of course, you get some of the experts, top experts. They invite you and Teddy there, and you guys just talk it out and discuss how you can actually make this work for everybody.
Well, I hope the leagues do get together on a plan, a master plan, to be able to do something that's going to be good for the beneficial for the people that are betting their sports. They don't want these people drowning and dying trying to figure out, how to make their next paycheck or how not to lose their next paycheck. So I think it would be beneficial only in the league's behalf to do something like that, and they also need to get together in working in concert with the sports books. The sports books are going to be operating many of the sports books in Vegas now, the William Hills, Cantor Gaming, those sports books are going to be operating a lot of these sports books in the various different states, and the leagues need to get together with those sports books to make this work. The one thing that the league has and holds over the sports books right now in their favor, that they feel they have their main bargaining chip, is their data, information to their data. They own the rights to the data, and they're contending that they're not going to give the rights to the data to the sports books to use unless there's a cut or a piece of the pie, the integrity fee that they're crying about. And it may work because in-game wagering is very, very popular in Vegas these days. But whatever the politics are, it needs to be sorted out, and it needs to be working favorably and fast to make this thing work to the maximum benefit for everybody, because there's a lot of people involved in this, and there are going to be a lot of people playing sports here moving forward.
And then let's not forget here, real quick, that it's not just the leagues themselves. When the NBA's been lobbying, the MLB's been lobbying, NFL and NHL. There's also the NCAA, which is not a league, and which has not come on board with a lot of this stuff. And when you think about college betting versus pro betting, there's a difference of opinion of how this stuff plays out in the public perception. So the NCAA, too, has got to get on board with the quote-unquote leagues, and I don't see that happening. I don't think it's realistic.
Yeah, I mean, we have enough problems with as fans with what the NCAA does, of course, in basketball and football, Mark. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's realistic that they're going to figure out how to make this work. I mean, this is a delicate topic. I mean, would you have what would be realistic that you can actually, whether a timetable and some plan that you could actually see happening?
Well, what you have to do is work backwards here, Greg, and I'm saying working backwards. You're starting at the finish line, and you're saying, okay, what is the ultimate prize? What is it we're looking to do? What are we looking to achieve here? And take steps backwards to make that happen. As far as putting the leagues and the NCAA in concert with one another, the bottom line here is going to be profits, net profits, and integrity. Integrity, at least more so on the NCAA side of things than the professional leagues. And for that to happen, they're going to have to be instituted. They're going to have to institute, if not laws, at least programs, and put programs in place to do all these things. So it can be done. The bottom line here is getting everybody at the table at the summit meeting, just like everybody got together in Korea over the nuclear issue here. They're going to have to get together here because we don't want this to turn into a nuclear issue as well. So we have to get the NCAA involved with the professional sports leagues as well.
All right. Well, it's going to be a topic that we'll definitely discuss every time we do the show, because especially if we don't, I think our next show might be next month, maybe just before training camp, and things are going to be happening an awful lot, Teddy. Matter of fact, what is right now, who is providing the services, and who, as of today, and who's out there trying to provide the services, say, in the next week or two? And is anybody kind of waiting for somebody to do something first before everybody else does it?
Well, I mean, Delaware's in play, New Jersey's in play. We're expecting to see the likes of Mississippi and West Virginia in play in the not-too-distant future. But when you talk about, what are we expecting to see after this initial flurry, not much. It's going to go state by state around the country. Some states are interested, some aren't. Each state's working on their own legislation. There's no talk now of any overriding federal legislation. There's no talk now of anything in terms of the differences between rules. Like Jersey, it just said, all right, well, we're going to take betting, but you can't bet on Rutgers or Seton Hall. You can't bet on this. You can't bet on any of the quote unquote amateur events in the state. Which something Nevada did a long time ago, and then they stopped doing it because they realized that it made us look bad, not good. Oh, why can't you bet on your team? Well, there's no reason for it.
Okay.
So, what am I expecting after this initial flurry? Very little in terms of hard news, a lot in terms of behind-the-scenes negotiation at various states around the country.
And we don't really think that this is going to affect, you were talking about the college level, Mark. You don't think this is going to have any effect at all on the professional level as far as, line fixing or anything like that. I just think that when the law came out and I was listening to the general media, it just seemed like they were going hysterical with all sorts. Now, your concerns are legit. I wasn't hearing that with their concerns. They were just going off the rail with some weird concerns about how now all of a sudden, you have to watch officials and you have to watch players because it's going to be easier to gamble. And I think that's just ignorance because maybe these are people who don't gamble normally and don't understand how easy it is today.
Well, first of all, the fixing games on the professional level is really almost a moot point. They make so much money; they're almost unapproachable. It's going to be more on the college, the NCAA level, where the kids aren't making any money, and those kids, all of a sudden, a couple of $1,000 are going to look attractive to them to turn the ball over, not grab a rebound, to do things like that. But the bottom line to this whole thing is going to be. Much like we look at when we open up our wallets and we look at a dollar bill and it says, "In God we trust." What's going to happen for this to all work? It's going to have to be in Nevada sports books we trust. The leagues are going to have to put their faith in the Nevada sports books and realize that the Nevada sports books are going to be their best watchdog when it comes to funny business going on in these games. So get the sports books and the leagues and the NCAA all together at the same table here, and perhaps we can iron all this out.
Teddy, does Vegas benefit more now because they're going to have these other states that are going to be getting into something that they're the experts? And as Mark said, the leagues are going to look to Vegas to be the watchdog. So does Vegas in any way actually benefit from this?
The leagues are lobbying to throw out the Vegas model, which is based on 0.25% tax at the book seat, and to use the European model. The leagues don't want any part of Vegas. They continue to not want any part of Vegas. They continue to use Las Vegas as an example of what not to do, despite the fact that Vegas has been their best watchdog for the last 50 years. And when we think about professional betting scandals, they're all the same. They're all the same. Black Sox. Guess what? The players weren't getting paid. They were getting ripped off. Paul Hornung and Alex Karras, hanging out with mob guys in the early 60s. Why? No free agency. All the professional players were getting ripped off by the owners. That's not the case in 2018. The only guys who are getting ripped off in the modern era are the college players who are who are not paid, and you can say, all right, well, they get a free education, yada yada. The college players aren't getting paid, and that's where the fear of scandal has been. That's where the fear of scandal continues to be, and you can lock it in. There will be another college betting scandal at some point in the next decade, maybe before then, because the kids aren't getting what they deserve for what they put out on the field, and that's the issue, of course, between NCAA and the leagues. The leagues are paying their players. The college teams aren't, and that makes a big difference when it comes to the ability for a gambler to say, hey, you need some money? Let me see if I could, you help me, I'll help you. which is the way these fixing scandals always start.
Is there a formula out there right now, Mark, that you think could work for the college athlete to get compensated?
I think there are paths to get to that formula, and I think the first path is this, Greg. If your child won an academic scholarship and got a free ride to a university, he's allowed to get a job. He's allowed to work and make an income while he's there. What's the difference of a college football player getting a free ride to university and being told he's not allowed to work or not allowed to get a job? That's ridiculous.
So that happens first. That's the easiest That's the easiest fix.
So lift that cover off. Let the athletes get jobs. Let them earn incomes. That's at least a starting point. Then you can get eventually to the finish line, and the finish line would be the universities paying the athletes a share of the revenues from that they're drawing from all this money they're making. The big money makers at every university is the athletic program, and precisely football and basketball. So share the wealth. That has to happen. But at least let these kids that are playing college basketball sports, at least let them employ themselves to get jobs so they're not as approachable as they are right now. Because right now, my goodness, a guy's going to wave $10,000 in front of a kid, who's a quarterback at, in a Sun Belt Conference football program, and that's where the ugliness is going to have to happen. But the leagues, I think NCAA has to let these kids at least start earning an income.
The most recent betting scandal there was, the San Diego Toreros in college basketball. You know how much the kids were getting? Like $500.
Wow.
$1,000. It's not much, No. If I can get 50 dimes down in a game and I can pay off a kid for $1,000, I'll do it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
I mean, that's not how I work, and that's not how the system's supposed to work. But when kids are broke, okay, I was in Ann Arbor when the Fab Five was there, okay? I could tell you for a fact, Chris Webber was walking around with a new... No, he wasn't. Chris Webber was hungry. Chris Webber, Juwan Howard, Jalen Rose, guys with no money in their pockets coming in with literally hundreds of millions of dollars waiting for them on the other side, and they're sitting there as sophomores, a year into the mix, and, hey, man, can you get me some wings? I have no money today.
Yes.
That's real. It happened.
Yeah.
I was there. So, it doesn't take much to get these to get a college kid to listen to what you have to say because they're walking around broke.
What about, and whether or not you would agree, would you be okay with this, where an athlete, especially the top athlete, would you have restrictions on where he can work? Because what about he gets a job somewhere where the people that are employing him are going to employ him sort of like, I'm going to employ you, and I'm going to wind up giving you, I'm going to give you $10,000 a month to do some menial job because of, wink, wink. Is that something where you have to kind of regulate the jobs?
Yes, and that's why it's not going to happen. Again, speaking from my experience in Ann Arbor, if the players were allowed to work, the alumni would be paying the players big wages to come work at whatever questionable job, whether it's during the season, whether it's over the summer. I don't think working is the answer because I think that sets all kinds of ideas that can be abused. I think the answer is pay the frickin' players for what they do. But as Mark said, getting from here to there is a long, long way. The idea of having work as an in-between step might get us there, but, boy, that, too, is rife for abuse. And, that's at a Big Ten school. Think about what they'll do down in the SEC.
Yeah.
Well, there's also one other resolve, potentially, Teddy, to working, getting to the big pie and paying the players. And the schools could have job pools where they could have each university could be signed to businesses in and around the university. And McDonald's, whatever the corporations happen to be, they would have to go through the job pool to take their jobs that way, and the university would approve the job. So there would be no funny business. At least it's a start.
Okay.
As opposed to the wink, wink, and here's $20,000, and all of a sudden you're driving in a new car.
Okay.
So let the universities at least moderate the job pool, let the players start getting paid, and hopefully it can end up to bigger and better things for the athletes.
All right, we're going to continue this conversation next month, but let's get into baseball. Both you guys, of course, working on baseball right now. And by the way, baseball, is that it? Teddy, you working on anything else besides baseball?
Oh, yeah. I work football every day, all summer.
Well, I mean, anything that's actually active playing games. Is baseball it?
The football betting market is very active right now, but in terms of actual games, no. At this time of year, I'm exclusively on a daily basis a baseball guy.
And same thing, Mark? Everything's just...
well, I'm basically exclusively baseball as well, but I have a good colleague friend of mine who just eats, drinks, and sleeps soccer, and I'm walking through the World Cup with him, so I'm posting plays it covers in the World Cup.
Oh, there you go.
We did that together in 2014, and we're really, really successful. I'm looking forward to doing it again, and much like I think the average American fan who really doesn't really eat or drink and swallow soccer, they do when World Cup gets here. It's a big, big event, so I'm looking forward. We're doing that right now at Covers, posting World Cup selections throughout the World Cup.
Yeah, I can definitely see, though, that the World Cup is going to, ratings-wise, this year in the United States is going to drop tremendously when you've got no USA and no Italy. I mean, how can you have a World Cup without Italy? How is that even possible? I mean, I don't care what their stupid ways of getting there and who you got to beat to get there. I mean, come on. You can't have Egypt in the, and some of these other countries that are just awful somehow find their way to the World Cup, and Italy and the United States isn't there?
Yeah, Tunisia, Saudi Arabia, countries like that, who likely, arguably, should not be there. But the truth of the matter is, they did have a chance to get there, and they didn't qualify. They didn't play when they were needed to play in the qualifying games, and so we're sitting back watching. But the one country to cheer for, guys, if you just like just the way things evolve, is Iceland. We saw that story from them. Yeah, we saw that from them the last World Cup, and it's really great. Just 330,000 people populate that country, and they pay the coaches. They're all professionals that coach these kids from when the time they can walk until they get into the program here. So it'd be nice to see Iceland win a game or two and win one for the good guys.
Yeah, aren't they playing like they're playing a big powerhouse team this week already? I was going through the programming, and I could have sworn I seen them play like Argentina. There you go. Okay, so we'll know whether Iceland. Maybe they're a nice little underdog to go after just for the heck of it. Okay, let's talk about baseball. So the average sports fan maybe they casually like to put money on sporting events just to, again, it's a hobby, preoccupy my time, and maybe they've never really done baseball for a living, Teddy. So what would you suggest to the novice baseball fan that is trying to figure out baseball gambling? Give us some easy tips.
The very first thing that I would do when if someone's just starting baseball today, all right, today's your first day betting baseball. What you want to do is go in there and start looking at your streaks. All right, in particular, the streaks that you can ride for extended periods of time, not necessarily sides, it's totals. The markets do not adjust particularly well when it comes to teams either hitting hot or cooling off offensively. And there is legitimate correlation between totals one day and the next day. When you have a hot lineup, a lineup stays hot until proven otherwise. Okay. When you have a bullpen that gets worn down, that bullpen's worn down again the next day, and the day after, and the day after, until they get a day off or until they get a gem from somebody. So you can find these total streaks and ride them again. And look at right now, the Dodgers cashed another over last night. What did they cash now, 10 in a row? 9 out of 10? The Rockies, the same story. Every game flying over the total. They got there in the ninth inning last night. And when a team wins 12 in a row, it's a lead story on SportsCenter. When a team goes over the total 12 times in a row, the only one that notices is, a couple guys here in Vegas.
And when does the streak start? 3 games, 4 games, 5 games? When do you really start paying attention to where you go, okay, now I'm going to jump on that team?
I will do it as early as I can. As soon as I see something shift. So here's the Dodgers. They got Turner back in the lineup, and all of a sudden they pounded out 3 home runs. Boom. All right, hey, let's pay attention. Boom. The next day they score. They go over the total by themselves again. Bang. I'm in on the Dodgers over, moving forward until proven otherwise.
Got it.
That's just one example. So you want to react quickly You don't want to sit
Sure.
there. Well, let's think about it for a week while they go 6-1 to the over for the next week.
Yeah, that one.
You know, it's you see something.
Yeah.
You bet it.
Yep.
That's kind of how it works.
Mark, what's your tip?
Well, much like Teddy talked about team streaking, so too do pitchers, and a lot of Major League Baseball games are priced dependent upon the starting pitchers. That's basically where they're going to weigh the game, and pitchers also streak much like teams do. They have good times of the year, bad times of the year, and it's good to keep a gauge on pitchers to find out who's found their groove and who is not, who's really struggling. Also, when it comes to pitching today, because we don't find many pitchers pitching complete games anymore because of the way they manage the games, limit the pitchers to certain pitch counts. The bullpens are vitally important here as well. To look at how many times the bullpen's been used throughout the course of a series or of late. So if you can put a rested bullpen behind a pitcher that's a really good form, that's maybe in his season peak form, that's a nice combination to be able to find, because every pitcher will go through, just like every team, they will go through their ups and their downs throughout the course of a season. They'll have their winning runs and their losing runs, and it's really good to isolate good pitchers on winning runs with good, well-rested bullpens.
All right. Talk about give me a team, Mark. First, Teddy, give me a team that you think is a good bargain right now. It was somebody that likes to play futures, or somebody that is just going to get into everyday betting on games, that you're going to say, okay, forecasting the time that we are now to the end of the season, which team would you consider a bargain? And I would think that we probably would start somewhere like around maybe, I don't know, Washington, Dodgers, and back, just using, say, the World Series futures as a measuring stick, because the Dodgers they're 10-1. They were just 16-1 a week ago. Cleveland is still 14-1 to win the World Series. Seattle's 22-1. San Francisco's 25-1, and Arizona 28-1, leading the National League West. I don't know if you have anybody else in there that you think is a bargain, but who would be a bargain for you?
When you talk about the MLB future book, there are no bargains. The Dodgers at 16-1 a week ago, they were probably 20-1 a couple of weeks ago. They might have been a bargain then, but as soon as you see the signs, hey, this team's coming around, they're starting to hit, now we got the Dodgers again, the markets react fairly quickly to this stuff. So if I'm going to make a future wager now, all right, I want a team that's down and out now.
Sure.
And when I look for a team that's down and out now that has a chance to do something, I don't see any. I don't see a squad with a sub-500 record today that I expect to make the playoffs. And that leaves me very limited in saying, all right, well, if you give me a recommendation, my recommendation is stay away from the future book.
All right. Mark, what about you? You've got a couple of teams leading their divisions right now. Actually, you can say three teams leading their divisions right now if you want to sell Seattle in there. But I'm not going to put Seattle in there because there's Houston with them. So we know Houston's going to win that division. But you have Cleveland at 14-1 and Arizona at 28-1. And as long as Arizona gets Robbie Ray back and are relatively healthy, maybe they make a deal at the deadline, I think that's a pretty good bargain right now at 28-1 while they're leading that division. And Cleveland at 14-1, we know they're going to win that division. So to me, I think those are a couple teams that I would be interested in.
Well, I'm going to approach this a little bit like Teddy did. I'm looking for teams that are down a little bit now and looking for some value on those teams. You can't really want to even think about riding hot baseball teams, especially hot right now, because you know they're not going to be hot from now till the end of the season. They're going to also level out or plateau. If you look at the American League side of things here, the two leaders in the East Division are legit, Boston and New York, and I'm saying they're legit because their road records are better than any home record of any other team in the American League. They know how to win games on the road, and that's the reason they're going to be in the playoffs this season here. You take a look at the L.A. Angels. It's a baseball team I think might have the ability to creep back into this race here. They're only 17-18 at home, but they're 20-12 away. So they're doing what they need to do. What all good playoff teams do is win more games on the road than they lose. The Angels are doing that. They're just not winning games at home. And if their pitching can come around, they can maybe carve out a wild card spot for themselves. On the National League side of things here, I would look for the Washington Nationals to pull away from this league here. They're only 15-16 at home, but they're 21-11 away. You know they're going to be performing better baseball at home here of late here. Probably get a little better pressure on them now at home because they're underachieving. When they get hot at home, you probably won't be able to play that team. And if there's a team, I think maybe, like Teddy says, not worth playing right now, under 500 type team. But if there's one that might end up coming back up to a little better level, might be the Colorado Rockies, just given the chance that they're only 11-19 at Coors this year, but 20-14 away. So that would be my little overview of Major League Baseball today. But I'm like Teddy here. I'm not playing any futures right now because everything is so hot and cold in Major League Baseball. It's all about streaks, and streaks should end up costing you if you're playing Major League Baseball futures moving forward.
And you can't even touch if you're doing futures and you're willing to do anybody. You can't even touch the Yankees or the Red Sox because they're both 5 or 6 to 1, and one of those teams is going to have to play a wild card game. So you're just that's a major gamble. I mean, I don't know why anyone would want to take that chance.
Well, it's funny because the American League, basically, there's no playoff race. 4 of the 5 playoff teams are already set. It's going to be the Yankees, it's going to be the Red Sox, it's going to be the Indians, it's going to be the Astros.
Yeah.
The race is it the Mariners or the Angels for the second wild card?
And now the Angels look like they lose Ohtani.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it for the American League. So when you talk about a league where there's literally nothing for you in the future book, you want the long shot. You want the team that has a chance to come out of nowhere and get hot in September. Dale doesn't have a team like that. I don't know, maybe the Padres? What are you seeing on the Padres out there? How about the Padres to win the NL West?
No.
Good luck.
Exactly. I mean, you're shooting for real long shots. And I just don't see that happening.
Okay, before we move over to football, Mark, give me a number, a money line number for a favorite in Major League Baseball on a daily basis that you are not going to go over.
You're talking about the pricing of a game is not priced. I'm not going to.
Would you never go over minus 150, minus 180?
I don't like to lay anything more than $1.50.
$1.50.
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, it's because if you lose that game, you have to win 1.5 games to get that back.
Sure.
And it's very, very difficult to do that. I'm largely an underdog handicapper to begin with, so $1.50 is kind of like a bad neighborhood for me to be walking around in, if you will.
Okay.
So, but you'll never see me laying more than $1.50 in a game.
Teddy?
And see, this to me is it's a not an easy question to answer because there's a personal standpoint and there's a service standpoint.
Sure.
My clients don't like it when you give them a $3 favorite and it loses. So for my clients, I'm with Mark. 140, maybe 150 is about the max I'll go because they get very, very upset when favorites lose.
Do you...
For my bankroll, I'll lay $3. Sure, August is a great time, man. You find these teams that are just dead and they're facing good teams, and they're just going to get swept, and that's how it is. I'll lay $3 a day. You see the wise guys do it all the time, where a game gets priced, opens at minus 250 and closes minus 350. That's not square money. That's some of the best bettors in the world. So I have no hesitation laying a big price when the situation warrants. But from a service standpoint, I never do it because they literally, you give a client a $3 favor and it loses, you've lost that client.
What about parlays in baseball? Because I would think that if you because I know a lot of handicappers completely stay away from parlays. It's just not worth it. It's against you. Okay, I get that. But let's just say that if you had to advise parlays at all in any sport, wouldn't baseball be the sport to do it because of that? Where you would go, okay, if you're going to do a parlay, go ahead and do a minus 200 and a minus 150, and at least you shrink the you shrink the numbers a little bit.
I think that's the only time I would parlay is Major League Baseball with larger favorites, favorites that look really good. You'll find pitchers that are in masterful form, perhaps season peak form, and but obviously so too do the odds makers see them, and they're priced accordingly. So, if there are two pitchers on a baseball card that I think look awfully good, I'll consider parlaying the two of them, but never will I in football or basketball.
Yeah, you agree, right, Teddy?
Oh no, in baseball. Like in any sport, okay, there's enormous value with underdog money lines parlays. All right, if you have a day in college football where all these double-digit dogs, boom, 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 you got 4, 5, 6 double-digit dogs cashing, you're gonna have a monster day if you're betting underdog money line parlays, assuming you're involved in it. Baseball's the same way. All right, I'm not putting chalk. So people say, oh, how do you turn a little into a lot? How do I go for a score when I'm betting? And that's where they look to parlays. Well, that's great. You hit a 3-teamer, you got whatever, it's minus 110, or you're laying. You want to lay $2 in your parlay. Your return isn't great. Your big returns from parlays come with underdogs in the money line that is sportsbooks single biggest vulnerability here in Las Vegas, and very few bettors do it.
Okay, so you're recommending that if people do parlays, don't go with the favorites, go with the dogs.
If you're looking to take a shot, if you're looking for a score, if you're looking for a 20-1 or a 50-1 or a 100-1
if that's
payout,
your objective.
that's
Correct.
where you can get in MLB. It's very reasonable, on a day where some dogs are hitting. You get a 21 payout on a three-teamer.
Sure.
It's
sometimes I look at the lines and I'll see teams that are good teams will be like plus 170 just because they're on the road against a good pitcher. And I'm like, whoa, wait. I'm getting a team that's like 8 games over 500 against a team that's 5 games over 500, and I'm getting plus 170 because they're on the road against a good pitcher. I'll take that. I mean, you never know. I mean, is that how also you try to handle it? I mean, it's tricky. Obviously, you're always looking to take advantage of all sorts of angles and possibilities with pitching, but and I don't want to get too in depth about it, Teddy. But
no, just real quick. I mean, I'm just going to use Clayton Kershaw as an example. All right, Clayton Kershaw, best pitcher in the game, right?
Yep, you could say that next to Scherzer. Sure.
Sure. Okay, fine. Scherzer, the Nats have won all the starts. If you bet Kershaw. And every start this season, you're broke right now.
Wow.
He was next to the bottom in ROI. So it's your aces that you want to be going against.
Interesting.
In these situations.
Okay.
That's where you're getting your big underdog, returns, is going against the named pitchers that are laying minus 250, minus $3 in a game that, maybe they shouldn't quite have been at that price.
All right, now let's move to football, and let's talk about college football because first of all, college football. I know that we were just talking about underdogs, and Mark, I know that we'll get into this in a couple of months, but it just seems to me in college football over the last few years, and maybe it's been going on for a lot longer, I've just been noticing it more the last few years, that there are more really big long shots that outright win games. I mean, you're seeing teams that are 15-1, 15-point dogs, 18-point dogs, 3 or 4 or 5 a week that you can pick. And I'm not talking like Sunbelt teams either. I'm talking about legitimate underdogs that I've just never seen it before. I mean, is that something that's happened a lot more recently, or has that just always been the case?
Well, it's a game of streaks, as Teddy mentioned here, and it happens in football as well, college and NFL football. And Teddy talked about money lines, betting underdogs on money lines in baseball. It also applies to football as well. If you like a live dog in college football or the National Football League, and they're a 4 or 5, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 point dog, you can make do really well to bet that team on a money line and serve yourself well that way as well. So the whole objective here is when you're looking for underdogs in football, asking yourself the question: can they win this game, or do they have a realistic chance to win this game straight up on the playing field? And if they do, and they're not a double-digit dog, you could have to really consider playing that team on a money line.
And don't you guys think that, because one of the things that I've actually looked at myself personally over the last, say, 4 or 5 years in the NFL, Teddy, is that I've noticed that if you win the game in the NFL, you're going to cover. I mean, statistically speaking. So in other words, if you're a 4 or 5 point dog, I don't want the points. I'm taking the money line.
Sure. I mean, the straight-up winner in the NFL covers the spread, and Mark, you can correct me here, but it's somewhere between 83 and 85% of the time.
Yes, correct.
That's right.
And that varies by year, but it's fairly consistent in that regard. So certainly conceptually, I'm with you very much, Mark, when you're talking about the underdogs in college football that cash, the underdogs in the NFL that win straight up. That's, again, where the sportsbook's biggest vulnerability is. If you're going to be betting underdogs on the money line, you need a deep bankroll. You're not going to cash every week.
Sure.
You're going to have some very ugly weeks. But when you have the good week, you have one good week in college football, betting underdogs on the money line, you paid for your season.
Yeah.
If you have 2 good weeks, you've had a real big year. But you need the bankroll flexibility to be able to withstand some losing weeks, and maybe more than a few, in order to finally have the week where the score come in.
All right, let's talk about Mark. You've got some teams that you feel are teams that in college football you feel pretty confident will be better than maybe some people think right now? Teams, in other words, that you feel confident are going to outplay expectations. Let's start, first of all, with the top team in the group that you have, and that's Florida. Florida is going through coaching changes. Their offense has just been awful the last several years, so they get rid of their coach. They bring in a new coach. And look, I love the coach, so I haven't done my research yet like you have as far as recruiting and who's playing where. But why do you like Florida to exceed expectations?
Well, when new coaches come into floundering programs, it's almost always for a reason, and that program is really struggling. This is a program in Florida that's as solid as any FBS program there is out there. Dan Mullen comes home. He's a Florida Gator, a former Florida Gator, and Florida has finished 13th out of 14 SEC teams last football season. They used 3 different quarterbacks last year, all trying to find this magic elixir, which they couldn't do. Dan Mullen comes in. He brings a coaching staff in with him that he's paid an enormous amount of money with. The 10 assistant coaches on his staff are making an average of $4.75 million a year this year. Okay,
nice.
So there's a formula that works in college football. Nick Saban does it, and a lot of successful programs have done it. They pay their assistant coaches. He brings Brian Johnson in, a former quarterback at Utah, as his quarterback coach. Brian Johnson comes in, and he's working with Felipe Franks in the offseason here. And everybody remembers Felipe Franks from last year.
Sure.
He's a big, strapping quarterback who really struggled. Mm-hmm. He was thrown into the fires as a true freshman last year. And Johnson says that this kid has gone from class to grass in his maturity and his improvement from last year to this year. He's like 6'5". He can throw the ball 75 yards standing still. He's got a rocket cannon arm. He's absolutely in love with this kid, and Mullen inherits a team that brings back a ton of experience. They have 18 starters coming back in total from last year's football season here. I think the Florida Gators they're what I call a mission team, that being a football team that's known nothing but success in the past, that tastes that rare losing season. Those teams usually dig down deep and play hard the next year, and I believe they're going to play hard for Dan Mullen this year. I think the Florida Gators could end up being a real surprise team in the SEC this year.
You know, Teddy, I think one of the benefits, one of the main benefits for a team like Florida in the SEC is they don't have to play in the same division as Alabama.
Well, sure, but it's still the SEC. But when you're in a division with a juggernaut, you look at Alabama in the SEC, when you look at Ohio State in the Big Ten, et cetera, around the country, it always benefits teams that are trying to make a jump when they're in the other side of the league, and that's certainly the case for the Florida Gators in 2018.
On the flip side, Mark, you actually think that there's going to be some issues this year with the LSU program.
I do. This is a program I see really struggling this football season here. We're going to find out whether Ed Orgeron is a real head coach or not, if he's a cheerleader or he's a true, legitimate head coach here.
Cheerleader.
There's a lot of people seem to think that about him, and we're going to find it out. He took a hit as far as player personnel goes last year. He loses more experience than any team in college football last year. 14 starters are gone, 18 players from the 2 deep have to be replaced, and he had 6 players that jumped out into the National Football League and defected for the NFL last football season here. You couple all this with Ed Orgeron's questionable coaching abilities here, and you also look at the fact that he's going to take on more teams this year that have a week of rest to get ready for him than any team in college football this year.
Interesting.
Four opponents are going to be laying in the weeds, waiting on LSU with an extra week of rest to prepare for a football team here. And I just don't see Ed Orgeron out-coaching those opponents here. I think LSU is going to be that mission team next year. I talked about Florida, always a perennial winning team that suffers a rare losing season. This will be LSU's losing season this year.
All right. And by the way, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what the Patriots say. There is no way Danny Etling is going to become anything in the NFL. I don't care. I don't care.
He wasn't anything at Purdue or LSU.
Or else. I mean, I know the coaching there in both those programs is pretty bad. While he was at Purdue, he didn't get Jeff Brom. So I get that. But no, there's just no way. There's no Matt Castle there. for Danny Etling. By the way, what about you, Mark? As far as taking a look at college football, Mark's got his Teddy. Mark has his playbook preview guide out now, so he's done all that research already. What about you? How much research do you still have to do, or are you pretty much caught up now? The spring practices are over, and when they're over, you're also ready to go for college football.
If the season started tomorrow, I wouldn't complain. Okay. That being said, college football is a process, and I find normally what I do, my strategy is post-NFL draft, I dive into the NFL right away, get my NFL work done, and then work gradually, team by team, conference by conference, throughout college football over the summer. So I'm, at this moment, more up to speed across the board in the NFL. Any team you want to talk about, I can talk about. College, I'm only about a little bit more than a third of the way through.
Sure.
Because there's plenty of time to go.
Well, who's caught your eye so far?
Get your work done over the summer.
Who's caught your eye so far in a positive way in college out of that third?
In college, well, certainly, you brought up a team that caught my eye right away in the Purdue Boilermakers, a squad that last year got off to a hot start and then kind of cooled off down the stretch. Finished 7-6. Very positive campaign for a program that had been way, way down. I think Purdue, again, has the potential to be a real moneymaker for their backers early in the season. Brom's a guy who's had a pretty strong point spread track record, someone who I've got my eye on. Again, but I'm not talking about winning titles. I could care less who's going to win titles. I'm talking about who is an undervalued commodity from a point spread perspective, and the Purdue Boilermakers, for me, have that potential.
Hey, you never know, though. In that division, in the Big Ten, I tell you what, Jeff Brom is going to win a division title sooner or later. He's that good of a coach, and he doesn't have to worry about Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. Maybe not this year, like you said, but he brings back both quarterbacks, right? This year, Brom?
That's the plan.
Okay, that's what I thought of as well. Okay, just quickly, Mark, Arizona, Temple, and Texas Tech. Those are three other teams you like.
I do. I like the Arizona Wildcats. I love all the changes that are going on there. Kevin Sumlin comes in, and he inherits a quarterback that is tailor-made for Kevin Sumlin's playbook, and that's Khalil Tate, the quarterback who really burst onto the scene last year in October. The kid won Pac-12 Player of the Year 4 successive weeks in a row. He's his Johnny Manziel, you will.
Yep.
I think he's going to do really well for this football team. Just the fact that it's addition by subtraction. Rich Rodriguez is gone, and a hungry Kevin Sumlin comes in to take over the quarterback spot here. 4.5 wins with the season total here. I think that's a real nice overplay, the Arizona Wildcats, for one of the nice plays this year.
All right, and then, of course, Temple, they went through some growing pains when they lost their head coach. So why do you think they're going to have a better year this year?
Because of their head coach, Jeff Collins. He came on and he replaced Matt Rule, and that was a genius hire by Temple to do just that. Collins was a defensive coordinator at Florida, and he was wanted by everybody in the Southeast Conference, and he could have taken them numerous jobs and elected not to. He waited until the right situation, and Matt Rule assured him that the program and everything in place at Temple was what he wanted it to be. He took the job last year, and if you look at what happened with this football team last year, you look at their first, with the way they started out the football season here, they were outgained or outyarded their first 5 games in a row out of the gate. They had a little trouble assembling the playbook here, getting on the right page. But the last 8 games, they won the yards in every one of their final 8 games of the season. They went from being yarded 134 yards a game to winning the stats, 217 net yards of a differential here for this football program here. He's a brilliant head coach, Jeff Collins is. He's got a starting quarterback back. Most of his offensive line here, I think they're going to make a lot of noise in the AAC.
All right, and then finally, Texas Tech. I'm a little bit surprised to hear you like Texas Tech. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury, it's time for him to get this program going.
Well, that's part of the reason. Cliff Kingsbury he wins or he's gone here this football season here. Well liked, an alum from Texas Tech, all about offense, no defense. But that changed drastically last year. He brought David Gibbs on as his defensive coordinator. And what did they do last year? They improved that defense 110 yards a game. They were a rock-solid 500-yard defense. And suddenly they played some good defensive football last year. He's got 10 of those starters coming back to the football team this year. They made 154 career starts, those starters on defense for Texas Tech. You add some defense to what will always be a good offense there at Texas Tech with Cliff Kingsbury fighting for his job, for his life here. I think Texas Tech's going to make some noise this year.
All right, let's switch over to football, the NFL, Teddy, and we're going to go over 4 teams that you believe right now, as of today. Well, first of all, are these the 4 teams that have been pretty much some of the biggest line movers?
Yeah. When we're talking about teams that the wise guys have gotten involved with very early in the NFL season win total marketplace, those are the teams I was trying to highlight on today's show.
And let's start alphabetically with Cleveland. What are they, about 5.5 on the win total?
Yeah, open 4.5, and boom, bet up to 5. Boom, bet up to 5.5. Boom, 5.5 with juice to the over.
and they haven't won. What, they got 1 win in 2 years?
1-31.
1-31,
yeah.
and so now we're supposed to believe they're going to win 6 games. So, what do you think about that?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at the Browns roster on paper, they remind me a lot of Jacksonville last year.
Hey, sure, they're a much better team on paper than a winless team that they were last year. There's no doubt about that.
Minus 29 in turnovers. I mean, do you know how stunning a number that is? You don't see that in the NFL.
Yeah.
So assuming they get some level of moderate QB play, and of course Tyrod Taylor, who is expected to be the starter in Cleveland this year, the one thing he doesn't do, he's a check down Charlie. He's like Alex Smith. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes, doesn't turn the ball over. That was his MO in Buffalo. You have a QB that doesn't make mistakes, and a defense that is all 3 units for Cleveland, loaded on defense. Again, you don't want to say this team's going to Super Bowl, but they're not going to Super Bowl. But 5.5 wins. Wise guys love this team over, and it's easy to understand why when you actually grade out the personnel on the Browns.
Okay.
They're literally above average at every position except for the quarterback.
Okay, and I think Baker Mayfield will start in September. I don't know when in September, not yet, but he'll
Can we
start.
make a wager on that?
We can do that, sure.
All right, because I'm taking Tyrod Taylor through September.
Okay.
You got Mayfield.
Okay, that sounds good.
That's
What do you think? You're the
tiebreaker,
tiebreaker, Mark.
Well, I'm from Cleveland here, and I'd be stunned if Baker Mayfield actually takes the field before October. I'd probably be because of an injury. They don't want to ruin him. They don't want to throw him to the wolves here right now. And they brought a new Todd Haley's the new offensive coordinator. He's got Ken Zampese as a quarterback coach. They're going to bring him along, and bring him along the right way under Tyrod Taylor, who doesn't make a lot of mistakes, a lot of fundamental mistakes. I think the Browns have made an excellent choice in Baker Mayfield here, but they don't want to throw him to the wolves, to the fire here just yet. And I'd probably take Teddy's side of that equation.
All right, sounds good. We'll talk more about that in a few months. Chargers, next team. Chargers, I believe, 9.5, Teddy?
Yeah, and this is another team. Opened 8.5, bet up to 9, bet up to 9.5. A heavy steam on the L.A. Chargers, a team that started 0-4 last year and then came on like gangbusters down the stretch, winning 9 of their last 12 ball games. And when you look at this division in the AFC West, the marks are saying, Denver's still a sub-500 team. Kansas City, well, they traded away their QB, and the markets aren't particularly high on KC or on Oakland. And they're saying L.A. has the best quarterback in the division in Phillip Rivers. They've got plenty of playmaking talent around him, even after the Hunter Henry's injury. That is an impact injury for that team. Make no mistake about it. And of course, L.A. last year, one of the top 3 teams, along with the Redskins and Texans, in most starter games lost to injury. So with the QB they have, with the secondary they have, with the pass rush, Bosa and Ingram, markets are very, very high on the Chargers, and look at them as the best team clearly in the AFC West.
What do you think they're the best team in the AFC West, Mark?
I don't think they're the best team. I think there's a sleeper team in the AFC West, and I'm saying sleeper only from the standpoint of what they did last year and what I'm expecting them to do this year. And that would be the Denver Broncos, a football team that finally has a quarterback. They drafted Bradley Chubb to reinforce that defensive line. The number 1 defense in the NFL will most likely be that number 1 defense again this year. And I believe that Case Keenum's going to add some stability to this offense here. And I think the Denver Broncos, once again, one of those mission teams, that rare losing season, bounces back in a big way the next year.
All right, let's go to the last 2 teams. They're both in the NFC. Teddy, we'll start with the Giants at 6.5.
Yeah, and the Giants have seen a fair bit of over money come in as well. And the concept here is, look, very simple. Bounce back. New coaching staff. new head coach, new offense coordinator, new defense coordinator, Hall of Fame quarterback. Again, a team with the QB. In theory, you look at Eli's numbers the last 3 years, the drop-off has been remarkable, and every metric you can use. And the marks are saying, all right, Eli's fallen about as far as he's going to fall, even though the Giants have all kinds of questions if anything happens to Eli or if he's ineffective once again. But in the trenches, the Giants made the right moves. They didn't panic, with the exception of changing the coaching staff. They're saying, look, McAdoo didn't really connect here. Shermer, much more likely to do so. And all they have to do is win 7 games to go over the total. So I'm not surprised at all that we've seen the expectations the Giants are going to be a better team this year than they were a season ago.
Yeah, what do you think about the Giants right now, Mark? I mean, I always hesitate to wager in any way, shape, or form with the Giants over the years. I mean, even when they won their 2 Super Bowls, heading into December, they didn't even look like maybe they were a playoff team. So they're just a very funny team to get a grasp on.
Well, they've only won 7 games once in the last 4 years, so there'd be kind of new water, new territory for them to do just that if you were to cash that ticket with this football team. I'm not a big Pat Shermer fan, and I remember his days as a head coach in the National Football League and in his playing role as an assistant coach, as an offensive coordinator, and how lethargic his offenses have been wherever he's been. I just don't see him revitalizing this offense any at all. I know they're putting a lot of firepower at wide receiver position in what might be Eli's swan song season here, but until they can prove it to me, I can't get over. I can't see the Giants winning 7 games this football season. That's a pretty tough division that they happen to be residing in.
All right, and then finally San Francisco at 8.5. This is really no surprise that this is a wise guy team with everything that happened to Jimmy Garoppolo at the end of the season, Teddy. So. That 8.5 number is usually an indicator of whether or not a team is a playoff team or not.
Well, the 8.5s are mostly gone. You can find them like minus 160 juice right now, mostly 9s.
Really?
On San Fran at the betting market. Yeah, this team's white hot. And of all of these teams we're talking about, this is the move that I would disagree with the most.
Okay.
And boy, you want to talk about this? We always talk about bad beats, this bad beat, that bad beat. If you had the 49ers under 5.5 wins last year, that's as tough a beat as you're ever going to have.
Uh-huh.
They're 1-10, all right, and they don't lose. And they don't lose the 11th game.
Yeah, you're already counting your money.
Yeah, you were counting your money. There's right side, but that 5-game winning streak at the end of the campaign has the markets convinced. Oh, San Fran's loaded; they're going to be great. And you go through game by game during that 5-game winning streak. Oh, they beat some playoff teams. They beat teams that had to win. The spots were bad. They beat Chicago, who was awful, and Houston, who was awful. They beat the Rams in a game that didn't matter. They beat the Giants, who were awful. And then the 2, these games mattered. Tennessee and Jacksonville both came at home. Both came in awkward spots for the opposing team. I think San Fran's wildly overvalued. I think this roster has a ton of holes. And yet, Jimmy Garoppolo, they're going to win. They're going to be contending in this division. We've seen a lot of San Fran money over, and I'm waiting. I'm in no rush. I'll get to the 49ers under at some point between now and the beginning of the season.
All right, awesome. I appreciate it, Teddy, and thanks a lot for taking your time to talk to us today. And we'll talk to you again. Now, no NBA anymore, so you're going to be. Are you really into the draft and free agency, or is that like, nah, it's nothing to do with handicapping? So
honestly, my only concern is what the games are this week or this month. So when it comes to NBA draft and free agency, I'll look at them when the future markets come out, but not before.
All right, Teddy, sounds good. And we also want to let everybody know that they can follow you on Twitter, and that is at Teddy_covers, correct?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Teddy, I appreciate it. We look forward to doing this again sometime, maybe next month.
I look forward to it as well. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Teddy. That's Teddy Covers, and Teddy will be with us again real soon here. On our show, the Covers Council, because with the NBA, I'll probably get Teddy on again to talk baseball and maybe be able to get you on at some point before the MLB playoffs begin. What's the difference for you, Mark, before I let you go, with the MLB regular season handicapping and the playoffs? And that time of year is so distracting for handicappers because you've got everything going on. You know, you got the basketball and the hockey and the college basketball, and then you got the baseball playoffs and NFL and college football. Does it really die down considerably as far as how much you're into baseball once the playoffs begin, even though the playoffs are the playoffs? I mean, you've been following baseball for 6-7 months. This should be really something that you should be excited about.
Well, the one thing I don't get excited about when baseball is the month of September when they expand the rosters to 40 players on the rosters, and you're finding a lot of teams that are out of the race, teams that are in the race that are being priced, and all of a sudden, what would be $1.60 favorites now $2 and $2.20. So it's very, very difficult. The waters get a lot choppier handicapping baseball in the month of September. And I'll focus my efforts more toward football when college and NFL football is here. But I do love the playoffs, so handicapping baseball through the end of August is what I really, really enjoy doing, and then picking it back up when the baseball playoffs begin in October.
So you're into the playoffs. You're and as a fan as well?
As a fan as well, yes, for sure. There's no better time in any sport than the playoffs, which, obviously, made me a happy camper, and a lot of other fans when the college football came to their senses and incorporated playoffs into the college football scene as well. So Major League Baseball playoffs is a good time of the year to be watching and handicapping baseball.
All right. So thanks a lot, Mark. Once again, want to let everybody know that now if you're not in Vegas, how do they go ahead and order that Playbook football preview guide?
Well, you can get the Playbook football preview guide on our website at playbook.com. You can order it right there. We'll ship it to you directly. It's on sale at newsstands all around the country the last week of June at all the Barnes & Noble stores, or if you happen to be in Las Vegas, you can visit our friends over at the Gamblers Book Club in Las Vegas. They have plenty of them in stock.
All right. That is it for our show. Mark, I appreciate it. Thanks for checking in with us. I know we went a little bit over, but that's because we were having such a great conversation, so I hope we didn't make you late for anything.
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversation with Greg, and I look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Thanks, Mark. That's Mark Lawrence, and great to have Mark on. Of course, he is an icon in the industry, and this is the first of, we sure hope, many shows with Mark, with Teddy, and we'll be sure to have some other handicappers on as well from the Covers Council. Steve Merrill talks with us when we were into baseball, but again, now that the baseball season is really all there is, I'm going to try to see if we can hook up with Mark, hook up with Teddy. There are some other handicappers out there, even that I haven't spoken to yet at Covers, that maybe we can bring in for the Major League Baseball season and have an opportunity to go inside and get different opinions. Because when we have our baseball show, which right now we're only doing it once a month, and I got so many other things going on at Prime Sports Network that I'm not into the baseball thing on a weekly basis just yet. I don't have to be like Mark and Teddy because they do it for a living, but I will be getting into baseball more and more on a weekly basis and then on a daily basis come playoff time real soon. So once we start doing that, we're going to get a whole bunch of other people, especially over from Covers, to check in with us and to get all these different opinions that'll help you guys out, breaking down teams, making predictions, whether it's for games, especially for the postseason, as well as my favorite, which are playing futures. So that'll wrap it up here for the premiere edition of the Covers Council on the Prime Sports Radio Network. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. For Teddy Covers, Mark Lawrence, I'm Greg DePalma. Go to experts.covers.com. Take 50% off any purchase. Use the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. We'll see you next time.